Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Weimer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ film festival. This is our 37th year, and we have some amazing programmings. I'm so proud of what we're showing. One of our favorite films is a documentary called A House is Not a Disco. I'm going to read a brief description of the film, and then we're going to meet the director, Brian J. Smith. A House is Not a Disco documents a year in the life of the world's most iconic homo-normative community, Fire Island Pines. Situated 50 miles from New York City, this storied queer beach town finds itself in the midst of a renaissance as a new generation of millennial homeowners reimagine the Pines for a new, more inclusive era. Filmed like a Frederick Wiseman movie on magic mushrooms, a large cast of unforgettable eccentrics, activists, drifters, and first timers reflect on the legacy of the Pines while preparing their beloved village for the biggest challenge it has faced since the AIDS crisis, rising seas caused by climate change. Again, this is a film our programmers really, really loved. I'm sure our audience will as well. Please welcome director Brian J. Smith.
Hi, hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. We adore this film, and it means a lot
Oh
to me to be
gosh.
able to talk to you. What made you want to make this documentary?
I've been going out to the Pines for years. I think I started in 2015, and I think people have very unique reactions to the place.
Yeah.
I had my own. I didn't exactly like love it, love it, love it. I had a very challenging time there, actually. As on top of having like some of the most incredible experiences like of my like young gay life. And it just is such a, especially for I think New Yorkers,
Mhm.
that place kind of sits in this very storied, um, uh, shelf of like the gay experience. And we also I thought there's been really great documentaries out there. Creighton Roby did one 20 years ago where ocean meets sky, which is just gorgeous. And but we felt it'd been a while since anyone had kind of check back in and
Mhm.
seeing what's new, what's going on there now, and so it just made a lot of sense. I knew I wanted to make something. I actually conceived the idea of this documentary in Atlanta. I
Okay.
was filming, yeah, I was filming a mini series for FX there, and we had a whole bunch of COVID shutdowns. Like we were just getting just destroyed by COVID. And so I spent a lot of time in my apartment, and that's when I was like, "What the hell am I doing with my life? Like, this is I'm not doing anything, you know." And so that's when it's like, all right, I'm gonna find something, and this is what the universe sort of made happen.
Right. Can you sort of talk about the renaissance that is going on there now?
Yeah. Well, first off, we filmed this about gosh, is 3 years ago now. I guess it's getting on to be 3 seasons ago. So already the place is a lot different, and they've definitely been going through some challenges in the community, especially regarding the Israeli-Palestine conflict right now. It's really made things quite interesting out there. We didn't have to deal with that when we were there. What we were dealing with actually was this wonderful sort of like release of energy after it felt like the 90s and the early 2000s, the place was very homogenous and
Hmm.
seemed just to cater for understandable reasons, honestly, to like, just very fit, white, moneyed gays in the city.
Yeah.
And because of Airbnb, because of, I think like the way that the LGBTQ community was changing, there was more of an effort to try to make the place is accessible and diverse and welcoming to people who for decades hadn't really felt like they were welcome out there. So that was sort of the story when we came into it, and it was really great to be there. And I think one of the things that's been awesome to hear from people who've seen the film and who know the Pines is they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh my God!" I mean, I that it looks like a completely different place than the
Yeah.
one than the Pines that I knew of, went to maybe in the '80s. It's definitely going through a great moment.
I've never been there. I guess when I see pictures or see most media, it's sort of depicted as kind of a rollicking party place. Everybody's coming together, but obviously
And it is.
times have
It's very
changed.
true.
And times have changed, and obviously there's some issues. But some of the people in the film talk about the exclusivity of the culture they've created. Can you sort of talk about that and their own self-awareness?
Yeah, it's something that they're very aware of out there and very self-conscious of. And I think especially with this new wave of younger homeowners that are coming out there right now who are, just very, very, very eager to have the Pines look a lot more like Manhattan itself.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it it's a complicated thing because the Pines, just because of its somewhat proximity to New York, but not really. I mean, you have to take like two trains and a ferry to get out there. You got to pay for each of those. By the time you get out there, you've already spent like almost $100. The food out there is really expensive. There's no restaurants. So you have to know people that live there in order to just like go somewhere for dinner, right? It's always been a kind of like small circle, invite your friends kind of place. And I think because of that, it had made it a little bit more insular now because of Airbnb, and I think, but because of a lot of the efforts of like the people that live out there now, the places definitely became a lot less exclusive. But it's always going to have just that little tinge of
Yeah.
specialness, and that's like it's the trick of the place. It's this thing they're always trying to like negotiate is how do we keep the place feeling
Yeah.
like like cool and special and a little bit like a secret, but still have everyone come and welcome everybody. That's a very tricky balance to pull off.
Can you talk about the environmental impact as well and how that's affecting the area?
Well, the environmental side of things was a surprise to us. I think like most people, for me, like climate change and rising seas and all that. You're like, oh yeah, I mean, we're talking just about a couple of inches. It's coming. We know it's going to be really bad, and we should do something about it. But like, I had never seen it with my own eyes until that summer when we were filming. And it's a sandbar out there, and it's very low. It's not a substantial piece of like earth out there. And so any minor changes in the ocean out there, you see it kind of like force multiplied in a place like the Pines. So they lost 30 feet of beach,
Gee.
um, overnight when we were there, filming them trying to put on the party. And it's 3 years on now. The Army Corps of Engineers has come in and restored some of the beach, but it's just not going to get better, right? I mean, this is something that is just going to continue to happen. The oceans are not going to just like start going down. This problem is something. It's an existential crisis for the island, and in true Pines fashion, though, it's not. There's not a lot of people out there kind of moaning and groaning about it and, oh, what are we going to do? They're kind of just too busy having a really great time and organizing and raising the money, doing what they got to do to salvage their paradise, and they really do a great job of that.
I know that you've been getting this film out a lot since, the spring and summer. Have you had, any New York specific or Fire Island screenings yet?
Yeah, we opened New Fest here in Manhattan
Mhm.
actually over the summer,
Okay.
and we'll be doing a sort of encore screening, at least online, I think, with them
Sure.
for this fall. And we're actually going out to the Pines on Friday to do a screening for the community out there. So it's our favorite thing to do because like they're always going to be the best audience. I mean, they get all the jokes, and they cry at all the great moments because it's about them. And
Exactly.
what's been nice is that they have, for the most part, like really embraced the film and have endorsed it, and told us, hey, we thought y'all were fair. Yeah, there's some stuff in there maybe we don't like, but we think that, all in all, like that, you guys really tried to balance all the competing, voices and stories that you could tell in a place like the Pines.
So what's next for the film?
Next for the film is, I think we've got gosh, well, we have y'all, which is awesome, and we're so excited to be able to bring the film to Atlanta, and we got a couple festivals in Canada, I believe. I think there's something happening out in Europe that has not been announced yet.
Okay.
But that's coming. And then I think we're going to finish off our festival season with the Palm Springs International Festival, I guess, right? In January.
Yeah.
And then after that, we'll see what happens. As you know, it's a crazy market out there right now for documentaries. It's you're just lucky to get your film seen in festivals, and beyond that, if I'm hoping that we can get it up for people to rent.
Yeah.
Um, Besides that, it's if your film isn't a true crime documentary or a sort of celebrity bio, it's very difficult to get, the big power players
Yeah.
to kind of give you a look.
Segueing into the directing, how was that? Was that easier than you thought, harder than you thought?
I think, well, I guess it's probably, like life. I mean, it's always maybe if you knew how difficult it was going to be going in, you probably would never get started on it. It was amazing. You know, I guess I always come at things just because I've been doing this for 20 years is an actor, and so I guess I compare everything to that. And one of the frustrating things about being an actor on a television or film is that you spend 90% of your time like twiddling your thumbs waiting to come on and get used, and then
Exactly.
half of the time they send you home. They don't even use you. And it's not a very artistically fulfilling thing to do. It's something you do as a job a lot of times, right? So doing something like this for me would actually felt really necessary. I needed to do something at that point in my life that kind of re-engaged my like problem solving skills, and made me have to like behave like an adult, and talk to people and convince them to give us things, or to give us time, or to let us film somewhere. I mean, that was really interesting. Having to navigate the more like producerial side of putting on a documentary. But I
Exactly.
loved it. It was one of the great experiences of my career, and I
Yeah.
really do hope I get to do it again.
So next week is, I guess, our official Brian J. Smith week. We have A House is Not a Disco, and then we have a Haze a couple of days after this. So Haze,
Hey,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I'm glad that we're showing Haze. Haze was filmed a while ago, correct?
We filmed Hayes like what, like 2 years maybe or something before we filmed the documentary. And I actually got I met our cinematographer, Eric Schleicher, or
Yeah.
director of photography, I think is the better way to put it. On that job, we became friends on that job. Oh, hey, baby. And and so and Matt Pfeiffer, who directed that, also
Yeah.
introduced me to our producer on the documentary, Jeremy Trong, who maybe did you see Cicada,
Yeah. Yeah.
Matt Pfeiffer's
We
first
showed
film?
that.
That they met on there too. So it's this little interesting little circle of kind of queer filmmakers that are all sort of meeting and exchanging ideas and making movies together, and it's really cool to be a part of that.
Exactly. It's such a creepy movie. When I finally get a chance to watch it, I was like, wow, this is very, this is really good, but it's dark and it's very disturbing and creepy, but it's so well done.
It's so beautiful. Yeah, I thought it was. I told Matt too. I just felt like it was because I love Cicada, and
Mm,
Cicada had such a like. I don't know. This felt like the things he was doing technically was sound design
yeah,
and the way he filmed it, and also too. I mean, he rewrote this thing like constantly, and I think it changed several times even after we filmed it. He was very obsessive in the editing process about just getting it absolutely perfect. And he's someone who's so open to things changing, like even his whole like basic vision for something will completely shift in a matter of like a week. And I really like admire that kind of like bravery in a filmmaker. It's really hard to pull off. And he's
exactly.
totally okay being out there in the ether like that.
Exactly. I know you've filmed in Atlanta before. Can you sort of talk briefly about filming here and when and what you liked about the area?
I've actually filmed in Atlanta quite a bit. I mean, a lot, as you know, like a lot of stuff films down there. We filmed, there was a TV show called Quantico, with
Yeah,
Priyanka
okay. Yeah.
Chopra. Remember that? I was in the first episode of that, and we filmed that actually. The pilot of it was in Atlanta, and Montreal. So that was my first time in Atlanta. I think I had done one other thing there, and I can't remember what it was, but this was definitely the longest that I had filmed
Mhm.
out there. This was for Class of '09, was an FX miniseries with Kate Mara, Brian Tyree Henry. Really great cast. I loved working in Atlanta. I think I especially loved it because we weren't working in the summer. It was like in the fall. I don't think I could survive in Atlanta summer. It sounds like I grew up in Texas too, and
Okay.
I just don't think I can do that kind of heat. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
You get used to it, but it's still
Yeah,
pretty. Yeah. Final
but
question.
I lived on Peachtree. I had a great little apartment on I think it was Peachtree, like downtown,
Yeah.
right above the Publix
Okay.
down there, and I loved it. I really had such a great time there. I love Atlanta. I really got to get back down there again because I miss it a lot.
Great. So, final question, Brian. Can you talk about queer representation, why it's important for you?
Well, I mean, I when I was like first becoming an actor, like when I was like in high school and like early college years, I was really obsessed with like the group theater.
Hmm.
Um, this was like Harold Clurman and Lee Strasberg and all them, and it was like this like group of people that were making art for a very 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 specific audience and speaking to them. And I think that like what we have today is like this great like queer middle class that can go and see movies and can rent movies online and can afford their Netflix subscription. And so we have this really unique opportunity and time to like really speak to a wide audience of our fellow queer folk. And I think that it's making some really 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 cool stuff happen. I think when you know who your audience is
Yeah.
and you make films for them and you put people like them in these films and you deal honestly with these themes in ways that maybe you can't in a more mainstream, studio feature film or in a series. Um, I think that's like really, really, really fabulous. It's the kind of stuff I'm really interested in making. Is like let's figure out what's going on with us. Let's ask the really deep questions and like let's like not like cast people who have no idea what it's like to be us.
Exactly.
Maybe they do imaginatively. That's great, but like there's something though about seeing yourself up there, someone like you, someone who understands your pain and your joy has actually felt it. There's something very cathartic, and I think we need that.
Thank you and congratulations. Okay, so the Brian J. Smith Weekend Out on Film is next week. We have a house. We have a house is not a disco. October 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Midtown Art Cinema. It's extraordinary. And then a few days later, we have Hayes, Friday, October 4th at 9:15, also at the Midtown Art Cinema. Both are extraordinary films. Brian, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much. And when you're all healed up, we would love to get you back down here and have a Q&A or just have you down here and do something with you.
Get some barbecue. Gotta get some of that good Atlanta barbecue.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Brian.
All right, bye. Best luck with the festival.
Thanks so much.